Piped Up, episode 4. So in this episode, we've got tools.
That's a real cool little gizmo to just have in your tool bag.
We've got hacks.
Saves you time, saves you carrying more tools.
And we're answering people's questions.
How would you actually work that out?
But first, let's start with the news. So, this guy ran a poll on price increases in 2026. Results are pretty interesting.
So, price rises are back on the agenda for UK trades in 2026. So this article follows a heating engineer called Ian Briggs from IRB Heating. So he asked his followers if they'll be hiking prices as costs climb. So he currently charges about £90 plus VAT for a standard boiler service. And is currently weighing like a £5 increase on that. So his poll shows that 58% are currently planning to raise their prices, 25% of them are undecided, and then 17% say they'll probably stay the same, with many citing soaring overheads, while others worrying that pushing towards £100 could possibly price them out of local work. What do you guys think?
What do you think, mate?
I haven't heard of this. I charge £80 for a landlord's or a boiler service, which is pretty reasonable. You do get these big companies online that try and like outprice people by doing them cheap, but I suppose it depends what part of the country you live in. Obviously, London's always more expensive, isn't it?
Yeah.
£90 plus VAT as well. So yeah, that's going to be quite steep.
But he's talking about putting it out by a fiver, so 95.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I guess it depends where he lives, and if things are increasing, then that's the way it will go. I suppose I'll have to follow suit because people will just generally all move towards whatever's the natural price people are charging.
Yeah, this is it. Yeah. Well, I mean, the poll showed 58% of people plan to raise prices in 2026.
No way.
So that's a majority. Of people planning to raise prices, which is interesting. I mean, I don't blame them, really, because the cost of everything's gone up, ain't it?
Yeah, I suppose inflation and things.
Massively, everything's gone up, ain't it? Cost of fuel, everything like that. Even like people I know running like small businesses tend to like hold off on putting up their prices. Obviously, bigger companies like have a little bit more like price dominance and relate like supermarkets and things like that will just put their prices up when they have to, right?
Yeah.
And everyone's just got to just deal with the price. But obviously small businesses tend to be a little bit more hesitant in that side of things. And most small businesses I know, which is understandable because you don't want to put people off, but sometimes it's just got to be done. And one of the things I've learned is if you wait too long to put your prices up, you then have to do a much bigger price increase later on, because you get to a point that you just like effectively losing money or just working for too little to cover all your expenses with the cost of fuel and all of these kinds of things. And then you have to do a much bigger price increase. Whereas if you do smaller incremental price increases over a longer period of time, then people are more accustomed to just accept it. Do you know what I mean? If you go from, let's say, 80 to 85 quid for something, people are more likely to just pay it. Whereas if eventually in, say, 5 years' time, you have to go from 80 to 100 quid or plus because you've like lagged the price increase or lagged inflation, then people are, it's a bit of pill to swallow for people when it's such a bigger increase. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
That's just one of the things I've learned on that, man. But
yeah, if you do a big rise quickly, then people are also going to think that, it might be trying to overcharge them and things, whereas a gradual rise, I suppose. And a five is not a lot of money, is it? So,
but yeah, 58% of people are going to put them up, 25% undecided, and 17% say they'll stay the same. Be interesting to hear from our audience, will it? What people are thinking, whether people are putting their prices up. Any installers out there going to be putting their prices up in 2026? Let us know. Moving on. You need to see this one about heat networks, right? As it's quite big and it's flying under the radar.
Ofgem says that their new consumer protection rules will go live on the 27th of January 2026. So this brings heating networks under formal regulation for the first time. Consumers are promised more consistent service, clearer info, reliable supply, and a clearer route to hold operators and suppliers to account if standards slip. They're pitching a work with you first year, with a new digital registration service due from spring 2026 and enforcement aimed mainly at cases of significant consumer harm, especially involving vulnerable customers. Obviously, for anyone that works on communal plants, rooms, HIUs or block schemes, you can expect higher expectations around standards, transparency, complaints handling, and documentation.
So yeah, communal plant rooms. I didn't really know what this was when I first saw it. I didn't think they were that big in this country, but then I started digging into it, and apparently there is quite a lot of them.
Yeah.
Do you do work on those?
Yeah, I've worked on them before. Yeah, definitely. It's
Yeah.
like you could have like a big block of flats in London,
Yeah.
and then the plant room like supplies everything. I've actually worked. My old company I worked for it built a big supermarket, and it had a communal plant room, and it built flats on top,
Oh, wow.
and the plant room fed all the flats as well as the supermarket. It was a real state-of-the-art one, but some of the ones in London that I haven't worked on personally, but some of my friends have, they're in a real bad state. I mean, real old blocks of flats and stuff in deprived parts of London, all over the country actually, that have got communal plant rooms. Some of them are old smacked-out boilers and... Yeah, just in generally poor condition. They're going to be breaking down a lot, so people are losing heating and hot water quite a lot. And they have quite reactive call-out programs, so they'll have like contractors looking after them. And people will be called in as soon as things break down. But I suppose being regulated more and watched over more is only going to help, because maybe some of them could do a bit of an upgrade.
Yeah, it's going to put a little bit more onto the people that are doing the maintenance. I imagine on the documentation, on the paperwork side of things, it's going to be more admin effectively, ain't there? Because you're going to have to feed back to the suppliers and the people that then have to report to Ofgem or have to have all of the documentation in place. They're going to need to know exactly what's been done and what's happened. It's going to be tightened up, I reckon, on that sort of things. Go on.
There's probably a lot of wasted energy as well, like in these communal plant rooms, because where a lot of them are old and they're serving like loads of properties, they're probably just on all the time, and people are just like, where they probably have like a small meter to see what each property's being charged or how much energy they're using or heating they're using. But there probably could be ways of sort of making that more efficient as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Because like having like more upgraded kit, so it's monitored better, and people like, I bet a lot of thermostats and even things like that don't work, and people just, because it's communal, they're just running it flat out all the time.
Yeah, makes sense. So this kind of like spans like domestic and commercial. Is it sort of like a hybrid? Because it's like, it's domestic properties a lot of the time, like flats and things like that, but it's like plant rooms, so it's more of like what you would imagine as like a commercial installation, right?
Yeah, so it's like a commercial plant room, and then so you'd have to have like your commercial ticket to work on the boilers and things like that, but then it basically pumps hot water up, and you'll have like a small like boiler that's not gas, it's and it's got like a heat exchanger in there, and it just basically takes the heat from that system into another system and shares it into that property.
Yeah. So it's definitely worth people knowing about this. Then definitely, if they work on these types of things, or anyone that's doing kind of commercial work, or if you get more commercial inquiries coming in, it could be for that type of setup, and you've got to have a little bit more on the regulatory side, or a little bit more knowledge, I'd say, on the regulatory side of things to stay the right side of Ofgem, by the sounds of things.
Yep.
Yeah, man. Cool. Sounds good. Like you say, probably improvements to be made there as well, so it should be good for people.
Definitely.
Right, this next one, I don't know why anyone's still carrying out illegal gas work, but I'm seeing this come up a lot at the moment.
Yeah, so we've got two separate cases here showing the dangers of illegal gas work. With courts sentencing an unregistered fitter in Torquay after a boiler swap left a home immediately dangerous with a gas leak, and then a father and son duo in Cheshire after unregistered gas boiler installs were signed off without proper checks, including flue defects carrying carbon monoxide risk. The Torquay man received a 15-month suspended prison sentence plus unpaid work and costs, while the Cheshire pair were given community orders, unpaid work, costs and compensation. The HSE is urging homeowners to always verify engineers are gas safe registered before any gas work begins.
Don't do illegal gas work.
I mean, why is anyone still doing it? Like 2025, 2026 is still going on. Like, it's madness, isn't it?
Do you know, I actually come across something recently, which would be a good story for the podcast. One of my good friends asked if I could service his mum's boiler. She lives alone, and she's recently bought a property. She's been there about a year or something, and the kitchen had been changed before she got the property, so we don't know who did the work, but this is just like a prime example. So the kitchen fitters, there must have been a gas hob there. They've ripped it out, put a new kitchen in, And I've sort of serviced the boiler and then done a tightness test, which is where you test there's no leaks on the gas supply in the property. And my manometer just was dropping really rapidly, like one of the worst I've seen, which a manometer, basically, you put it up to a certain pressure and then it's got to hold that pressure, and that's how you determine you've got no leaks. So if it sits there, the gas is, you've got no leaks. If it starts to drop, obviously, you're losing gas somewhere, and it was just shooting down. And I smelt a bit of a whiff, and I just turned my head to the side and I looked down the pipe downstream, and there was a push fit cap on the pipe, which is like a plastic, like for water pipes. And you hear about these stories like don't put push fit on gas. And obviously 19 years I've been doing gas and I've never seen a push fit pipe, unless in the test centre. They use it as like a bit of banter as one of the tests you do. There's like a rig of pipe work and there'll be like loads of defects on there, and there's a push fit cap on there. It's like, obviously don't put your push fit on the gas pipe. And there was a push fit cap, and it had been there, we don't know how long for, and it was just spilling out gas and leaking. So obviously like fixed it, put a proper cap on there. But so obviously a kitchen fit has gone in there, ripped out the hob and just cut the gas pipe outside, just put a push fit cap on there because they probably don't know any better and they think that's fine, and then they've just left it like that for God knows how long. But yeah, it could be really dangerous if that was inside and gas was escaping and it built up in an area, especially behind a kitchen cupboard or something. So you do get a lot of people do it. Like people just like, not so much fitting the boilers, but people sort of cut stuff out and things because they think they can, they just, people that do a bit of general plumbing when they're like general tradesmen that can do most bits of plumbing stuff, but they just sort of get involved because they think, I can do this. And when you haven't got the proper test equipment to test it all properly, you could do something seriously wrong.
Yeah, well, one of these ones said it was left immediately dangerous with a gas leak.
Yeah, so someone's done something pretty bad there. They obviously haven't fitted something properly, and you get different categories of when you're finding something wrong. You get at risk or immediately dangerous. At risk is for stuff that isn't as bad, that could be at risk, and then immediately dangerous is where something is obviously immediately dangerous. You have to shut off the gas supply and things like that.
Okay, so that's like a specific category that things fall into once an actual assessment is done by someone that knows what they're doing.
That's right. So you go around and you sort of have a look at, and if you find any defects, you have to categorise it at risk or immediately dangerous. And immediately dangerous is obviously when something's really severe.
Yeah, well, this said a gas leak, so obviously that is super dangerous. Isn't it?
Really bad. Is there any more information on what they found?
I have to have a flick through. I mean, there's a picture here for the father and the son one showing off the chimney and flue system. I don't know if I can zoom in nicely.
Yeah.
I mean, that looks pretty awful by my standards, personally.
Yeah, so it's just potential it could just fall apart. You need to support it and clip it properly so that so the flue's supported and doesn't come apart. I can't see too well from the picture, but it's probably more than that. It's probably hasn't been sealed properly and things like that.
This was the father-son one, was it?
Yeah, this one was.
The Cheshire pair that were given community orders.
Don't be doing that illegal gas work.
What do you think of these sentences then? So like I think this one where it was the father and son, they got community orders, unpaid work, costs and compensation. I mean, does that seem?
I mean, it doesn't seem too severe, but maybe what they'd done wasn't like extremely bad. If they'd have caused like a gas leak or an explosion, or like they could have killed someone, I mean, then you're looking at prison. I mean, they could have fitted that boiler, and it like they've just found defects on it, and like the install wasn't like horrendous, but it just wasn't done to the proper regulations, and then they've realised they're doing unsafe, like illegal gas work, and they're punishing them. But I mean, if you did illegal gas work and something went wrong where somebody was injured or you caused like an explosion or damage to property, then you could go jail. So it's just really not worth it.
No, definitely not. I mean, but going back to that father and son one, they $2,500 in costs to the magistrates court and then £1,460 to one of the affected homeowners. The court's got more money than the bloody homeowner.
Yeah.
Why is that? That don't make sense.
They're just one big business.
It's like, just pay us the money and then you can just get a community order. No,
they've got to pay for them.
Seems a little bit upside down, doesn't it?
They've got to pay for them comfy chairs somehow,
Oh mate, yeah. And then the other one, I think, got a 15-month suspended sentence, which is obviously quite severe in the sense of like, if you mess up again, then you are going to prison, right? But obviously having this, you'd think that they'd just give them a straight sentence rather than suspend the sentence. But I suppose if it's the first thing they've done wrong, maybe it's worth giving them a shot to learn their lesson and not do it again. But yeah, it's some dangerous stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
If it was my mum's house, I'd want them probably to go down for it.
Yeah, of course you would. Yeah, he'd be really angry. But I mean, it's just not worth doing, because if you do injure someone or harm somebody, then, for the sake of you getting paid in the first place for doing that work, is it really worth whatever you've earned for the severity of the consequences you might face after?
Yeah, exactly. And we're in 2026, and people should know by now.
Yeah,
illegal gas work should be a thing of the past.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah. And then homeowners as well need to be checking.
I think it's just people they're just arrogant, they're just arrogant to it, They just think they know better, and they think, I can do this. Or some people might be or have done gas in the past, or had some of the basic tickets and stuff, and they just think, But you've got to have those tickets, and you've got to be on the register.
Definitely, and homeowners need to check.
They do, yeah. You should check.
You've got to check. Got to check. Right, should we do some installation stuff?
I'd love to.
Yes. All right, first up then, hack of the week.
Yeah.
So what I want to know is, what's a hack that you thought sounded dumb until you tried it?
So I've brought a little prop with me, and I just didn't think this was going to be as effective as it's just a real easy, nice little hack, and it's just SDS bits in an impact driver. I saw some people doing it online, and I was just what's the point in that, just using SDS? But for doing small installations, say you're running a bit of pipe or hanging a radiator, it saves you just taking in your big SDS drill and your impact driver and other bits. You can literally, I've just started doing this, just getting a 7mm SDS. This is a Bosch bit. It was £7 in screw fix, and this literally drills into brick and everything. If I was drilling into solid concrete all day long, obviously I'd just get the SDS out, but this is a real good hack. Just started doing this a few months ago, and I was surprised. I thought, would it damage the impact, or is it going to will it only go into soft mortar? But this is a beast. It literally goes into anything. So you can literally just roll in. If I'm fitting a rad or something, I can just roll in with my impact driver and that bit and just drill into anything.
Nice.
So it's a great little hack. Yeah. Saves you time, saves you carrying more tools in and out. And So then you just take that off, you got your screw bit on, just switch back, bang, instead of swapping about drills and things. But great little product.
Nice. Brilliant.
I really didn't think the impact would be going into such hard brick and stuff. But it literally eats into it. So
Yeah, one of them ones. Someone said it to you and you thought, that ain't going to work.
Yeah.
And then you done it.
Yeah, I sort of saw it and was I thought, it's just easier to use an SDS. But then now I've started doing it. I'm just I can't remember the last time I used my SDS. Unless I'm doing loads of hardcore drilling. But just to do little jobs, I've just been rolling like this. It's great.
Spot on, mate. Lovely. Nice little hack there.
Yeah.
Next up, tool tip. This week's tool tip. So this time I want to know, what's an underrated tool that makes a bigger difference than people expect?
Well, a little tool that I've got. Well, I actually had this ages because I do aircon as well as heating. Because obviously I come from commercial and I was HVAC engineer, so we do heating, ventilation, and aircon. So I had this ages, never really used it, and then I sort of saw a little clip of someone. I was like, oh my god, I can't believe I haven't been doing that myself. And it's literally just an air conditioning spanner, because they backseat their valves with this type of a square spanner, and it's just got a quarter square port on it that you can put on pump valves and things, instead of just getting a spanner or grips and stuff. Just put that on there and just ratchet it up, and fits on certain drain offs and things. So that's a real cool little gizmo to just have in your tool bag to just make the job easier. And I've done a little video that we can add that shows me on the pump valve using it. So this is a JVAC one. They're £20, but you can just buy Temu ones for £5 or a tenner and stuff.
Really?
And
sweet.
So it's a cool little gizmo to have. And I think a lot of plumbers out there, I think, would appreciate this one, because for drain offs and pump valves, it's just a real nice little essential.
Yeah. Yeah, nice. Little sidetrack though. So you buy tools on Temu?
I don't buy tools on Temu, but certain little silly things, I bought a foldable bucket on Temu for £5 or something, because they're like £20 online, and like it's just a foldable bucket. And
Yeah.
other things. What else have I bought on there? Like a deburrer. It's just a deburrer. I mean, you can buy well expensive like £40-50 deburrers, but it's just a deburrer. I bought a little £5 deburrer on there. And another little thing I got on Temu recently, they're not really tools, they're just more little gizmo sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Consumables. They're just sort of like gizmos. Is a pipe cleaner, the one you put in an impact driver that you just go and clean. Like they sell them in England, obviously, in there. I think they're like 25-30 quid. You can just get them on there for like a £5, and they're just as good. So bits like that.
Yeah, they get delivered quite quick.
Some things do. Some things are like a week or two. But I wouldn't be buying like my high-end spanners and drills and stuff on there.
Like your power tools and your
yeah,
proper
but
stuff.
for a spanner like that's just all it is like a quarter square like aircon spanner. I mean, like JVac will probably last better, and it's a better quality spanner. But I'm sure that, because I saw someone else recently and they had a Temu version and it was just as good, really, for the sake of £7 or a £5 or something. It's just a little ratchet spanner. But high-end stuff, obviously, like your high-end spanners, grips, screwdrivers and all. I use all like Weira or CK or Barco and Rothenberg and things. So
smart, mate. Yeah, nice one. I've looked at Temu. There's a couple of things I tried to buy on there, but I got a little bit like confused with like all of the offers and like the crazy like, do you know what I mean?
It's hard. You can't just buy something
I couldn't buy it. I spent 2 hours on there like trying to, because it said I could have 2 things instead of just one, and I spent 2 hours trying to choose the second thing. It was actually this table, right? I found this table and it said I could have a second thing for free, so I spent 2 hours trying to find a second thing that I actually wanted. I kept showing them to the missus, going, what about this? What about this? What about this? We eventually settled on this like head massager, right? Because we thought the dogs would like it, but then it said that I actually did have to pay.
It's like conjure like that. I remember once being on there and like doing the wheel thing. It was like, you've won £50 in free gear, and I was like, great. So I like done all this £50 order and then went to process, and it was like, you've got to pay, and I just wasted so long trying to get it all in this £50 bucket.
Yeah.
So, but I just buy crap off there, really. Just like silly things like.
Yeah, like you say, low value things that you know are going to be fine, and if it isn't, it's not the end of the world. But you know, it's not. There's not a lot that can go wrong with it.
It's just like, I bought this like little cleaning mechanism the other day. I wouldn't buy anything like that. It is high quality, just little silly things.
Yeah, makes sense. Right, next up, we've got some questions from the audience. So questions for us this time. I don't know what these are. Callum's going to read them out to us. These are questions that have generally been left like in the comments on our UK Radiators YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So just heating related stuff. So it might be stuff for me to answer, might be stuff for you to answer. Let's find out.
Yeah, so we've had a lot of people wanting to balance their radiators, but they seem to be getting stuck because they don't know the order that they are on the circuit. So how would you actually work that out?
I think it's the closest radiator to the boiler, which can sometimes be hard to work out because you've got to really work out how it's piped. Every sort of different premises can be different, but the closest radiator to the boiler, you'd reg down more, and then the second reg down less. So that the furthest radiator away, you want more open, probably as a lot more than the closer radiators to the boiler. Or sometimes when people have modified pipework, it doesn't work like that as well. So if you've got towel rails are a massive offender, because everyone just has them open. Like a lot of the time I go into properties and towel rads are red hot, and because they're just open, so you want to like really reg them down on one side, because a lot of the time both of them are like a lock shield valve. They don't have like thermostatic rad valves. So wind one, open one end up, wind one all the way shut, and then just do it a little bit. If it doesn't get hot anymore, then you've done it a bit too much. But it's all about having a play and going around. But yeah, generally the closest radiator to the boiler is going to look to short cycle for that radiator. So if you've got that lock shield all the way open, then reg that one down all the way, shut it, and then just go back a little bit, like half or one turn, and then just keep going back in that order to your furthest away from the boiler.
So it's literally it's physically the closest radiator to the boiler, the one that is physically closest, and then you can there has to be a little bit of trial and error. If you've got two that are like equally close, then there has to be a little bit of trial and error, don't there?
Bearing in mind, sometimes if you've got a heat only or system boiler and you've got a cylinder in an airing cupboard, the way the flow and return are, the closest radiator, it might be near that flow and return. So it could be upstairs near your cylinder, or sometimes it can be in the hallway and things. It just depends how it's piped up.
Yeah, and then in some like more modern systems, you have separate zones as well, right?
Yeah,
so you have like 2 zone systems.
Yeah.
So like upstairs might be on a separate zone, effectively, to the downstairs, right?
Yeah.
So you might need to then like balance them independently. Is that right? Or,
well, you'd wanted to have both zones open, because if you had like if you shut one zone, so like you're upstairs, or sometimes you just have a thermostat in a living room. In new builds, so the 2 port is only going to allow heating in your living room, because they do that because people sit in the living room, so they can just have that one radiator on. But if you had one of your thermostats off, then it's going to like make the balancing unfair on the other radiators. So you just need to basically have both your thermostats on and do it that way. And heat always rises, so you're always going to get more heat upstairs than downstairs. So. Yeah. Sometimes it's just about having to play around.
Yeah, it is a bit of trial and error, because you're not always going to know exactly what order they're in. And like you say, if there's been extensions on the property or new pipe runs and things like that, that is going to, you're not going to necessarily know like straight off the bat, like exactly what order the rads are in on that circuit, are you? Until you try and error.
And also another tip, is when you're doing balancing, open all your thermostatic rad valves all the way to 5 or fully open, because if it's, for instance, 20 degrees in one room and you've got it on 2.5 or 3, that thermostatic rad valve is going to be shut. So you need to open all the thermostatic rad valves before you balance, so it's allowing water to go through every radiator.
Yeah.
And one other little tip is, I can't be welcome to
That's all right, mate. Plenty of tips in there anyway. There's plenty of tips in there. But yeah, you have got to just try and feel like there will be a little bit of a process to figure out the order, but what you're aiming for is the first rad on the circuit to have the lock shield like the most closed, and then the furthest away to be the most open, and then like progressively in order. And what that does is allows for the flow of the heating system to get all the way to the end, without being effectively kind of like used up by the first radiators or the earlier radiators. And if you don't do that, what you might end up with is a cold rad right at the end, and a really hot one right at the beginning.
Because the water will always find its easiest route. So if the radiator closest to your flow and return or boiler is fully open, the pump is going to cycle through that most. So what you're doing by regulating down that lock shield is you're preventing the flow going into that radiator, so it can push in, but the majority of it's getting pushed past the next radiator.
Nice. What's up next, Callum?
So we've had someone ask us how to know if your heating system's low pressure and why does that matter. So in their specific case, they were looking at it from because they wanted to add a vertical radiator to like the end of their circuit. So they wanted to know, how would they know if that would work or not, really?
How would you know if your heating system is low pressure?
So you have a gauge on the boiler, or if it's a like a heat only system type boiler with an airing cupboard and a cylinder, you'll have like maybe a filling loop in there and a gauge. But the majority of the time, you should have a gauge. If you don't have a gauge, a lot of the time, if your boiler, if your pressure isn't like, if your pressure's too low, the boiler will either come up with a fault code or will indicate you've got low pressure. Some boilers that don't have manual gauges. And the place is to look for a manual gauge. So if you've got a boiler, flap down the cover, and a lot of the time you've got a little small circular gauge, and you want the little black pin to be at about a bar. It's not the end of the world if it's just under or just over, as long as you're not going up to like 2.5, 3 bar and stuff. Really, you want it like a bar and a quarter. So look for the little circular gauge, and there usually is a red line on there and a black line. The red is just an indication if you've gone too far, but you can move that little red indicator. So if it's like come down to the 2 position, it's not the end of the world. You can like, it's usually set on about 3 because that's what your PRV discharge is set at. So yeah, just put the black pin to about a bar. If you haven't got a gauge on your boiler, then sometimes when you're filling up manually, it will all of a sudden change the setting on the boiler, and it will start telling you what the pressure is on the boiler on the electronic display. So, and the negatives of not having enough pressure is your heating system won't be as effective. And if you realise you have got too much pressure, you might have overpressurised it a bit too much, or your expansion vessel could be flat, so there's no room for expansion. And a very common thing on heating systems is if you have to keep repressurising your heating system, a lot of the time it's because your expansion vessel's gone flat. And what happens is when you heat up water and it's getting to like 70, 80 degrees, you get a lot of expansion. And when the expansion vessel in the boiler or an external one in your airing cupboard is flat, there's no room for expansion. So when that heating water gets up to like 70, 80 degrees, it expands. You'll notice that your pressure gauge goes all the way up to 3. And then what happens is there's a safety device in the boiler called a pressure relief valve that's manufactured to 3 bar, and that will slowly discharge and drip out of it because it thinks that you obviously got too much pressure, it's saving your system. So then when the system goes cold again, your heating goes off, where it's dripped and released pressure because you've gone up to 3 bar, you've then lost your pressure. So it's probably down to like under a bar and you have to keep filling it up.
Are all systems pressurised?
No, some are tank fed.
So on those types of systems, can the system effectively operate at a lower pressure? Does it still operate? Do you still have the same gauge on the boiler? Like, how does that work?
Tank fed systems don't generally have a gauge. They're just done off the gravity of the weight of the water from the tank. They're less effective, and they sludge up more because if you have small leaks or things like that, it's fresh water getting introduced all the time and they get like sludgy. They will obviously get a little bit of pressure there when the water heats up. They build pressure through the expansion. So yeah,
but it's not pressurized in the same.
I prefer a pressurized system. Yeah. No, like when you have like a sealed pressurized system, it's sealed and you're physically pressurizing it with mains water.
Yeah. So I think what the question was asking was like if you're trying to put, say, a vertical rad, the big tall ones, at like say upstairs and at the end of your run of rads, and it's an unpressurized system, then sometimes because obviously where you've got you're fighting gravity at that point to fill that radiator up, right?
It should still fill it.
Fill it, but at times, if there's an issue with the pressure of the system because it's an unpressurized system or an open vented system, and there's an issue there with the gravity fed system actually building pressure, then I think they're saying like how would you know that? Like how would you know?
Well, you could cut a gauge in, but it would just be you could cut a gauge in to see what you're getting when it's hot. But if you fitted a designer tool rad, it should still be fine because the tank's so high up in the loft on the unvented system, like you say, and if you bleed all the air out properly, if they're having trouble with the designer rad, like Rob, because you specialise in this market, I never knew this until probably a couple of years ago, but sometimes when people plumb them in, if they don't fit one of the diverter parts inside, which for people that don't know, if you're fitting a designer rad, there's like a part you can put in, or yours probably have them manufactured inside them, but a lot of the cheap ones they don't. So the water just runs through the bottom of it and goes straight out. Whereas better rads like Rob's, the water hits them and they've got a little diversion bit, and then it hits and makes it go up the radiator and come down, so it warms the radiator. But some, they sort of sell it as a separate thing, and I fitted one before years ago, and I just couldn't get this radiator hot, and I was thinking, what's going on? It was just passing through. Eventually it would get hot because the heat would transfer up, but then I found out about these bits you push into the radiator before you plumb it in and stuff, so it could possibly be that if you haven't put one of those in. But it shouldn't really be too much of a problem if it's an unvented system. If it's a pressurised system, you're just going to have to look for the gauge.
Fair play, sounds good. Any more, Cadam?
Well, this is going to be a bit of a two-parter. So the first part of it is, how often do you guys actually clean your radiators?
How often do I personally clean my own radiators?
How often do you personally clean your radiators?
I mean, I've never cleaned a radiator in my life, mate.
Nor have I. Apart from power flushing, but that's different.
So
we're talking about the outside of the radiator.
Yeah, talking about the outside.
Yeah, I've never cleaned a radiator.
It's going to make the rest of this question quite awkward because I was going to ask, what is the easiest way to clean them properly? So obviously, if you've got like a standard panel rad, obviously like the convector ones, are there any easier ways to do it?
Yeah, radiator brush.
Is that
to clean it like outside the radiator you're talking about? Yeah, like you get like a nice like radiator brush. Like you just push it down like where the convector fins are. You just push it down there, and it just cleans out all of the dust and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, you see things on TikTok with people like pouring water down them and things like that, but it's probably not really necessary. So yeah, I mean, you just get a radiator brush.
So
it depends how clean you want it.
So basically what I'm hearing here is avoid most of the TikTok hacks and just stick with the tried and true radiator brush then.
Just a radiator brush, mate. Yeah.
Do you sell radiator brushes?
We don't at the moment, but we're looking at adding them. We're looking at adding lots of little add-on products at the moment. So yeah, that's
because convector radiators, like you spoke about, sometimes when I remove them, they're literally clogged so much with dust. And like such a simple thing is if you like you said, just get your radiator brush and poke down there and have a hoover at the bottom. You can push loads of dust out, and then when you've got that open channel for air movement, you're just going to get so much more heat out of the radiator, aren't you? Than if it's blocked.
Yeah. We're going to be adding them very, very soon.
Should design your own.
We'll do a nice one, nicely designed one. Yeah. That's all the questions, all the audience questions. Right, we're going to end this episode again with a question for the audience. What's a gadget or tool that you've bought that promised miracles but did nothing? Comment your answers wherever you're seeing this and follow or subscribe to stay part of the conversation.